So you've been bitten by the contemporary a cappella bug. You've listened through the Pentatonix discography, watched the highlight clips of the sing-off, and maybe even performed or competed in ICHSA or ICCA, and you want to try arranging contemporary a cappella music for yourself. But where do you start? That's what this video is for. A step-by-step from the ground-up guide to arranging contemporary a cappella music. If you're here for more traditional choral a cappella, this is not the video for you. But if you'd like to see a tutorial on that, leave a comment below. My name is Alex, I'm a musician and composer, and if you find any value in this video, I would really appreciate you leaving a like. It helps the channel grow and gets my educational content seen by more people. Before you start arranging, ideally you have some sort of music theory knowledge. Nothing crazy, but you should be able to play chords to most popular songs on an instrument of your choice, like guitar or piano. And you should have a pretty good ear, not only to transcribe the melody and bass line of popular songs, but to hear and catch harmonies that you can add later into your arrangement. When I started arranging a cappella, I looked everywhere for all kinds of resources. I scoured the internet reading articles and watching YouTube videos. And I did find some information, but nothing that was a comprehensive step-by-step guide. Until I found this. A Cappella Arranging by Deke Sharon and Dylan Bell. Now, if you don't know those names, that's okay. Deke Sharon is basically considered the godfather of contemporary a cappella. He was the arranger and vocal director for all of the Pitch Perfect movies, as well as the show The Sing-Off. Basically, if you've heard any contemporary a cappella, there's a good chance that Deke Sharon was involved in some way. I actually had the opportunity to meet him at a competition at the end of last year, where he heard 2 of my arrangements. He's the nicest guy in the world and has such a genuine passion for what he does. It's really inspiring. And I don't mean to brag, but he called my arrangements sublime. So somebody please hire me. Anyway, this book is the perfect launching pad for anybody trying to start their career in contemporary a cappella arranging. While the book itself is massive and covers a ton of different topics in detail, what I love most about it is that the first chapter is a quick and dirty 10-step guide on how to arrange your first song. Each step is explained and expanded on later in the book, but this was perfect for me when I just wanted to read as little as possible and get to the actual writing. This first chapter is what we're going to cover in this video. I'll also show you how I applied these steps to my arrangement of Copacabana, originally performed by Barry Manilow, which was one of the songs that was performed in that competition I mentioned earlier. My high school's a cappella group performed 3 songs in total and ended up winning first place overall. That's the school I teach at, by the way, not the school I attend. We also got special awards for storytelling and theatrics. Anyway, let's get into it. Step 1. Choose a song. Yeah, pretty obvious, but the first step is to choose a song. And this choice might be more complicated than you think. If you're commissioned to write a piece, or if a group has requested a specific song, your job's kind of already done. But if you have any control over what song you're going to arrange, my best piece of advice is to pick a song that resonates with the strengths of the group that is performing. Even if you're not writing a piece for a specific ensemble, what does your ideal ensemble sound like, look like, dance like? What are the characteristics of a group that would succeed with your song? Is there a focus on dense harmonies and complicated parts? Or is the music simpler to accent choreography that you see on stage? Or is the narrative of the song the main driving point? There's no wrong answer, but you should have an answer. Deke Sharon and Dylan Bell echo this in their book. They also go on to talk about the importance of picking the right soloist for each piece. A poor soloist can ruin a great arrangement of a great song and leave the listener with the impression that either the song or the arrangement, or both, are mediocre or worse. The piece I ended up arranging was Copacabana, at the Copa, at the Copacabana, originally performed by Barry Manilow. And yeah, I did a ton of research. Actually, at the beginning of the semester, we made a playlist of all the songs that we thought would fit the group, and I think somebody as a joke put the song down, and that's what got me thinking about doing it, and it eventually led to the full arrangement. Step 2. Listening a lot. Once you have your song chosen, you need to spend some time listening to it. And this isn't casual listening. This is listening with an arranger's ear. You're listening for the melody, the chords, the bass line, aspects of the music that you've never heard before, an instrument that's buried far in the mix, a rhythm that's only sprinkled through the track. You need to be an expert at this song before you put a single note down on paper. This will help you make the right choices when arranging your version, and it will make you have to reference the original less when you're actually writing, which will save a ton of time. When I was deep diving into Copacabana, the things that stood out to me were the very active bass line, the high soaring violins during the interludes,
and the story that was being told through the lyrics.
Step 3. Listen and look at other arrangements. Yes, once you have the original committed to memory, you need to spend some time seeing what other musicians have done with it. If you're arranging a song that's popular in the a cappella community, you can listen to other a cappella arrangements of the song. What aspects did they change to accommodate for a all-vocal ensemble? And what you like or dislike about those arrangements. But also take some time to listen to just some regular covers of the song with instruments and multiple different kinds of ensembles. The more references you can find of people taking the song in different creative ways, the more that you can influence your own arrangement. What do other musicians do with style, rhythm, and harmony of the song? What did they find special about the song, and how did they emphasize it in their own way? And this is definitely not cheating. You're already making a version of a song that exists and was recorded, so what's stopping you from listening to other versions of that already created song? As long as you're not directly copying anybody, it's all fair game. Good artists create, great artists steal. I'm sure you've heard that before. Listening to a bunch of different versions of the same song will also help you find a direction that has not been taken before, and will make your arrangement stand out. You'll also inevitably find versions with issues, whether it be in the writing phase or the performance phase, and you'll know to avoid them.
For Copa, what really kept me coming back was the story aspect of the song. Most people don't really know the song aside from, like, the first verse. Her name was Lola, she was a showgirl, and that's fun, but it actually tells this whole story. At some point, Tony, the person Lola's in love with who also works at the same bar, gets into an altercation with a guy because he's harassing Lola, and one of them ends up being shot. The whole piece has this really fun, energized dance club feel to it, but I thought it'd be fun to rearrange a section to be more solemn and sad. Once we put the choreography in, it sort of acted as a funeral sequence to that character, and played really, really well because it was so different from the rest of the song. Nobody had seen the song from that perspective before. Don't be afraid to get really creative with this. That's the fun part.
Step 4. Decide on a form. Across the board, a cappella tunes tend to run pretty short. The reason being is that a cappella music actually takes a lot of energy to listen to. In a normal band setup, you have keys, bass, guitar, drums, and a lead singer. Your attention is drawn to one place at least most of the time. In a choral setting, even though everyone is singing, there are too many faces to individually recognize, so the audience subconsciously thinks of the ensemble as one unit altogether. But in a cappella, it's more intimate. You recognize every face because there are only so many faces in every group. The average group size is anywhere from 10 to 15 people. There is usually a soloist for every song, but the ear is still drawn to singing, the other voices happening in the arrangement. So listeners are in a heightened sense of discovery as they go through your arrangement. You may have to shuffle around or take out sections of the song completely. And again, that is totally okay. How many verses does it have? Does it need them all? Can we skip the second chorus and go right to the bridge instead? In their book, Sharon and Bell recommend singing through the song by yourself, and at any point you get bored, cut it. This is especially true for sections that won't translate super well to an a cappella genre, or to your group specifically. Unless your singers are well versed in a cappella guitar solos, maybe cut it. Most a cappella tunes don't run longer than about 3 minutes. Any longer and you risk making your audience feel fatigued and worse, bored.
The original recording of Copacabana had this huge instrumental break that I scrapped completely in lieu of that funeral scene I talked about earlier. That got the runtime to right about 3 minutes exactly.
Step 5. Prepare your materials. This is the final step before we actually start writing, deciding how we're going to write, whether it be on a computer using notation software or good old-fashioned paper and pen. There is no wrong way to do this. Whatever is most comfortable for you is the right way to go. Using digital tools does tend to be more flexible and faster, but if you're not already well versed in a notation program, know that you'll need to set aside some time to learn how the program works. Also, this can change later, but try to decide how many parts your arrangement is going to have. This will depend on the size of your group. Here are the book's recommendations. If you have a small ensemble, 6 or fewer, you'll want as many notes as you have people. Doubling only 1 or 2 parts will likely cause an unwanted imbalance. For a mid-sized ensemble, 7 to 15 like most college groups, consider having at least 2 people per part. You'll get a much fuller sound and hedge your bet against out-of-tune singing. Also, remember to count parts like the melody and vocal percussion. That way you don't accidentally end up writing a 16-part song for a 14-member group.
I arranged Copacabana using MuseScore. It is a free-to-use notation program, and I love it. It's how I write all of my arrangements and all my compositions. I recommend it to literally everybody, but whatever works for you, works for you. Side note, I'll talk about this in a later step, but while I was writing, I also recorded parts into Logic. This helps me to make sure that the parts are actually singable and not super stiff as if I just wrote them out in good music theory terms. If you're interested in doing this, you don't need anything fancy. GarageBand on your phone works totally fine. Anything that you can layer vocal takes on top of is going to get the job done.
Step 6. Write out the melody. This is a crucial step in your arrangement. Take some time and write out the melody of the song in its entirety. Having the correct notes and rhythms of the melody is imperative because that will influence what all the other parts are doing around it. Take the time, do this right. Just like how we referenced other arrangements for inspiration, there is no shame in looking up official sheet music for your song and cross-checking your melody with what is written down. But be aware that, especially for pop-style songs, the melodies can be simplified when put down on paper, which is normally fine, and your soloist will probably take some creative liberties in their interpretation of the melody anyway. But if you are counting on a specific section to go a certain way, I would make sure that's communicated in the arrangement. Step 7. Write out the bass line. The second most important part of your arrangement aside from the melody is your bass line. The bass is what holds the entire song together. It, along with vocal percussion, also provide the groove for the entire track. If the bass line is really recognizable, it's not a bad idea to just transcribe it one for one onto the page. That's what I did for Copacabana, changing things only based on the range of the singer and the fact that singers need to breathe. If the bass line is less defined, you're more than welcome to make your own version for your arrangement. No matter which way you take your bass line, this is the first part where you need to realize that humans are different than instruments. You are converting an instrumental part into a sung vocal part. Like I said earlier, you need to be aware of your singer's limitations. Things like range and breath support play a big role in actually shaping the music you're writing. It's tempting to write eighth notes that go on for pages, or whole notes that tie 20 bars together, but that's just not possible for most singers. And let's be real, if you want to get your arrangement sung, you should make things easily singable.
The melody for my arrangement stayed pretty much untouched aside from the funeral section, and I added a big button at the end. I wanted to leave it alone as much as possible to give the soloist an opportunity to put their own interpretation on top of my ideas. For Copacabana, I adjusted the bass line by jumping octaves when appropriate and adding breaths for texture.
Step 8. Write the background vocals. There are a ton of different ways to approach background vocals. They will ultimately provide the texture for the arrangement, with the bass line and melody being anchors to the original version. The book outlines a couple aspects of the background vocals you can focus on as a starting point. Maybe not all of these at once, but pick maybe one or two to start and explore from there. Rhythmic variety, having these vocals sing different rhythms from the solo and bass. Syllabic sounds, words versus sound syllables. Voice leading, making the background lines melodic and avoiding unnecessary jumps. Duet/trio, locking into the same words and rhythms as the melody. Block chords versus counterpoint, all voices acting as a single unit versus individual separate lines. Arpeggiation, voices working as a unit but spelling out chords by singing one note at a time like guitar strings. Instrumental idioms, using the voices to imitate instrumental sounds or textures. Musical styles, using vocal conventions from classical, doo-wop, close harmony, pop, R&B, and so on. This is usually going to be the most time-consuming part of your arrangement, but this is also where you can truly make it your own. An easy way to start choosing what actual notes to sing is to look at the chords of your song, which you should have committed to memory by this point, and look at what the melody and the bass are singing and add whatever is missing. If you're on a C chord and the bass and the melody are both singing a C note, your inner voices can sing an E and a G to fill out the chord. Start simple and expand from there. Also remember that not every voice needs to be singing the entire arrangement. Do what is best for the overall piece, and never underestimate the power of silence.
The harmonies of my arrangement are pretty ostinato-y throughout. People are doing very similar things, changing the actual notes, but the rhythms are staying the same. I also have a couple groups doubling things, so the soprano twos and the tenors are singing the same rhythm here, while the baritones and the altos are singing the same rhythms, and the sopranos are taking that high violin, and that really fills out the texture. Throughout strong moments, I have everybody singing the same thing together. This is the first time we get this sort of pre-chorus. Always tended bar across a crowded floor. We all come together in those moments. It sounds like this. and then right back into those ostinato-y type things, which keeps the balance fun throughout. I also tried to play a lot with musical ideas, so every time we say the word here, traditionally it is like super high. In the original song, we have a big sforzando swell happening. Violins, sopranos are still super high in the texture. And that stays pretty consistent. The second verse and the first verse, a copy paste of the first. I wanted the visual storytelling to be more prominent than the musical texture, and I thought the texture was already pretty dense, so it wouldn't be disinteresting if the words were changed. The real change is when we get to the funeral scene. Everything slows down. In an ominous daze, she lost her love. So those are all block chords, super dense, crunchy things happening. We're all monophonic singing here. It's very stacked harmonies. We go back to our all together. We're still monophonic, but a little more syncopated at that point. And then we break into a unison line. I love a good unison. And that is a copy-paste of the chorus, but it's faster, it's louder, it's more chaotic, and then we get this big button at the ending. And then we do like a slide off at the end. It's very cool.
Step 9. Final touches. This is another crucial step that is often overlooked. Once your first pass of the arrangement is done, listen to it. Sing every part all the way through, changing octaves if you need. Does anything feel empty or like something is missing? Or is it too busy and distracting to the listener? Is your vision of the song clear and present throughout? Does all the voice leading make sense? Is there enough development throughout the song? A lot of the time, you'll be able to hear something, know that it's missing, and change accordingly. It's best to turn your inner editor off when you're originally coming up with ideas, but you do eventually need to turn it back on and look at your arrangement for a while, and now's the time.
For the finishing touches, something I like to do is make sure the key of the song is right. Now, that may seem kind of weird picking the key at the end of the arrangement, but a lot of the times, especially when I'm transcribing the melody and the bass line for things, I find it easier to transcribe at the original key of the song and then move it up or down depending on what my needs are. And usually I don't run into too many problems aside from range issues sometimes, but as long as I'm aware of sort of where I'm going, I think it's fine. So before I started arranging, I looked up some different covers of the song and took note of all the keys they were in to make sure that any soloist could handle the range based on what voice part they were. And I found that everything pretty much stayed a step above or below what was written. So I took a risk with the high soprano part at times, and I also took a risk with the bass line at times, but I thought it was going to be okay, and it ended up being just fine.
Step 10. Record/rehearse. If you are writing this piece as a commission for a group that you're not a part of, recording all the parts is the final step. This will do two things. One, you will have one last opportunity to listen to your arrangement in full with all the parts and notice any mistakes or errors you made while writing. Trust me, fixing these things now before the group gets their hands on them is going to save you a lot of headache. And two, it's going to give the group practice tracks to learn your arrangement from. Most a cappella groups today learn their songs through the use of practice tracks. It's quick, it's efficient, and you can build musicality things in like swells and dynamics, so they are easily understood and repeated by your groups. So having them ready to go when they start rehearsing makes you seem more knowledgeable and professional. And these don't need to be high quality recordings either. They just need to get the point across. If you are involved in the group that's singing this, that's great. I would still recommend recording the practice tracks, but now you also get to play an active part in shaping the actual arrangement as it comes together in real life. The notes and rhythms on the page are important, but it's not music until people sing it. In rehearsal, you may find that a certain section just isn't hitting the same way you heard it in your head, or that your singers are naturally wanting to change the syllables in a certain section. This is the time not to be stubborn with your musical choices. It's your vision, your art, and that's great. But this is a collaborative thing that you're doing. Be open to changing and adjusting things based on the group and their needs. In turn, it'll make the group and your arrangement sound the best that it can.
So here is my actual Logic file with all the parts in it. So you can see, one, I've got the MIDI tracks. This was everything that was playing in the 4-score file. Sounds great. We have the original tracks that have been auto-tuned. I use Melodyne, which is just a program. It's sort of like Autotune, but Autotune is its own separate thing. So all the vocals were tuned, sometimes pretty aggressively because they were background vocals, and I'd rather have the correct pitch than it sounds supernatural in this moment. Then I bounced all those with the Autotune on them and threw some effects on. Hey, I'm editing this video right now and I actually forgot. Something I did to make this arrangement sound more modern was to change the percussion in it. So I'm using a popular rhythm, it's called the dembow rhythm, which is used in a lot of like dance hall and reggaeton music, which now is influencing like modern club music. It's that sort of sound. So I had that laid pretty much entirely over the entire track. So it's got the harmony and the lyrics of the original song, but it's got this modern flavor with that vocal percussion, which I think really brought it, put a fun twist on it.
Her name was Lola, she was a showgirl, with yellow feathers in her hair and a dress cut down to there. She would merengue and do the cha-cha, and while she tried to be a star, Tony always tended bar across a crowded floor. They worked from 8 till 4. They were young and they had each other. Who could ask for more? At the Copacabana, the hottest spot north of Havana. At the Copacabana, music and passion were always in fashion at the Copa.
And that's it. If you want to listen to the finished version of Copacabana, the song that I've been talking about this entire video, click the link on the screen. That's a recording from the actual contest we performed at. If you're wanting to sing my arrangement, links to purchase the sheet music will be in the description. If you and your group are interested in a custom arrangement of mine, feel free to email me at alex@alexpoolcomposer.com. I will also link the book A Cappella Arranging in the description as well, if you want to dive deeper into that resource. That won't be an affiliate link, it's just a book that I think every arranger should have. If you gained any knowledge from this video, I would really appreciate you leaving a like. It helps the channel grow and get my content seen by more people. Leave a comment with a song or songs that you're going to try these 10 steps out on for your next arrangement, and subscribe for more music-related content. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Happy writing.